The sting of humiliation was sharper than the chill of the San Francisco fog rolling in over the bay. For Kaylee Jensen, this parent-teacher gala was supposed to be about her son, a brief civil encounter with the man who had shattered her world. But her ex-husband Gregory had other plans. He stood before her, a smug smile plastered on his face, his arm possessively wrapped around a woman half her age. He wanted an audience for his triumph to show everyone what he had upgraded to. Kaylee thought this was the worst night of her life. She had no idea it was the first night of her real one. The ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel was a symphony of clinking champagne flutes and muted, self-important chatter. Kaylee Jensen clutched her small, worn clutch, feeling as out of place as a sparrow in a flock of peacocks. 2 years post-divorce, these events were still a minefield. She was here for Owen, her 10-year-old son, whose artwork, a surprisingly detailed charcoal sketch of the Golden Gate Bridge, was on display. She just wanted to see his proud face tell him how brilliant he was and then melt back into the quiet anonymity of her small Potrero Hill apartment. Then she saw him. Gregory Shaw. Her ex-husband hadn't just entered the room. He'd made an entrance. He was taller in her memory, more charming. Now seeing him through the clear lens of heartbreak, she saw him for what he was, a man meticulously constructed of brand names and ambition. He wore a custom Xenia suit that probably cost more than her car, and his smile was a weapon he wielded with practiced ease. But it wasn't him that made her breath catch. It was the woman attached to his arm. She was impossibly young, with hair the color of spun gold and a white dress so tight it looked painted on. Kaylee recognized her from Gregory's relentless social media post, Brittany, the 24-year-old lifestyle influencer. Kaylee tried to turn to blend into a conversation about property taxes, but Gregory's eyes, like a heat-seeking missile, locked onto her. He steered Brittany through the crowd, a shark parting a school of fish. "Kaylee, I was hoping we'd run into you." He boomed, his voice dripping with false sincerity. The heads of several parents' people she'd known for years swiveled in their direction. The show was about to begin. "Gregory," she said, her voice a tight knot in her throat, "the student art looks wonderful." He waved a dismissive hand. "Oh yes, Owen's little hobby. It's cute." He then pulled the young woman forward. "Kaylee, I want you to properly meet my fiancée, Brittany." Brittany offered a small, disinterested wave, her acrylic nails clicking against her phone. "Hey," she chirped, her eyes scanning the room for someone more important. "We just got back from Santorini," Gregory continued, his voice loud enough for the entire zip code to hear. "Finalizing the wedding plans. We're booking the entire resort, of course, for a full week. You can't put a price on perfection, can you?" He looked directly at Kaylee, a cruel glint in his eye. The subtext was screaming, "This is what you'll never have. This is what you weren't good enough for." Kaylee remembered the years she had worked 2 jobs to support him through his MBA, the dreams she'd put on hold, the inheritance from her parents she had used to fund his first failed startup. All of it erased for this. "That's nice, Gregory," she managed to say. "I'm sure it will be beautiful." "Oh, it will be," Brittany chimed in, suddenly engaged. "My dress is a custom Galia Le Havre. It's being flown in from Tel Aviv. Gregory says I deserve only the best." She squeezed his arm, looking up at him with doe-eyed adoration that Kaylee knew was as transactional as his stock portfolio. The humiliation was a physical thing, a hot flush that crawled up her neck. She could feel the pitying stares of the other parents. There was Mrs. Davenport, whose son was in Owen's class, whispering behind her hand to another mother. They saw Kaylee in her 3-year-old department store dress her simple pearl earrings, a gift from her late grandmother, and they saw the woman Gregory had discarded for a newer model. "Well," Kaylee said, forcing a smile that felt like cracking glass, "I need to find Owen. It was an experience meeting you, Brittany." She turned to leave, but Gregory's voice stopped her. "Oh, Kaylee, one more thing." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. He extracted a single $100 bill and held it out to her. "For Owen, for art supplies or whatever. I know things must be tight. The room went silent. The air crackled with the sheer audacity of the gesture. It wasn't kindness. It was a public execution. He was branding her as a charity case. Her hand trembled, but she didn't take the money. "That won't be necessary, Gregory," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Owen has everything he needs." Before he could retort, her phone, an old cracked iPhone, buzzed in her clutch. She fumbled for it, grateful for the interruption. The screen read unknown number. Normally she'd ignore it, but right now it was a lifeline. She stepped away from the suffocating circle of onlookers and answered, turning her back to Gregory. "Hello? Am I speaking with Ms. Kaylee Jensen?" a man's voice asked. It was deep, formal, and carried an unexpected gravity. "Yes, this is she." "Ms. Jensen, my name is Nathaniel Cole. I am an attorney with the firm Cole, Rivington & Finch. I am calling on behalf of the estate of the late Mr. Walter Pendleton. I apologize for the late hour, but I've been trying to reach you with some urgency." The name tickled a distant memory. Walter Pendleton, her grandmother's estranged, eccentric brother. Her great-uncle. She hadn't heard his name in 20 years. He was a recluse, a myth in their family. "My great-uncle, is everything all right?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'm very sorry to inform you, Ms. Jensen, but Mr. Pendleton passed away peacefully 2 days ago." "Oh." Kaylee breathed, a strange, detached sadness washing over her for a man she never knew. I'm sorry to hear that." "There is more, Ms. Jensen." The lawyer continued, his tone measured. "Mr. Pendleton has named you in his final will and testament. In fact, he has named you as his sole heir and beneficiary. It is imperative that we meet first thing in the morning. Your life is about to change in ways you cannot possibly imagine." Kaylee's mind reeled. Sole heir to what? A dusty house full of books. A few $1,000s. She turned back towards the crowd. Gregory was now holding court, laughing loudly as Brittany showed off a monstrous diamond ring on her finger. He caught Kaylee's eye and gave her a final dismissive smirk. A strange calm settled over Kaylee. She didn't know what the lawyer was talking about, but a tiny forgotten spark of defiance flickered to life within her. "Mr. Cole," she said into the phone, her voice steady and clear. "Tell me where and when. I'll be there." As she hung up, she met Gregory's gaze one last time. His smug smile was still there, but for the first time in 2 years it didn't hurt. It was just pathetic. He thought he had won. He thought he had just delivered the final crushing blow. He had no idea the world had just tilted on its axis. The next morning, Kaylee drove her sputtering 10-year-old Honda Civic into the heart of San Francisco's financial district. The car felt like a dinghy in a sea of gleaming black town cars and Teslas. The office of Cole, Rivington & Finch occupied the top 3 floors of a skyscraper that pierced the morning fog, a steel and glass testament to old money and power. Her sensible flats clicked nervously on the marble floor of the lobby. The air smelled of lemon polish and wealth. When she gave her name to the receptionist, the woman's professional veneer cracked for a moment, her eyes widening slightly before she regained her composure. "Of course, Ms. Jensen. Mr. Cole is expecting you. 52nd floor." The elevator ride was a silent, stomach-churning ascent. She smoothed down her best black dress, the one she saved for funerals and job interviews, feeling woefully underdressed. Nathaniel Cole was not what she expected. He wasn't a stuffy old man. He was in his late 30s with kind, intelligent eyes, sharp features, and a calm demeanor that immediately put her at ease. He stood as she entered his corner office, which offered a godlike view of the bay. "Ms. Jensen, thank you for coming on such short notice," he said, shaking her hand. His grip was firm and reassuring. "Please have a seat. Can I get you some coffee water?" "Water would be lovely, thank you," she murmured, sinking into a leather chair that was softer than her bed. He poured her a glass from a crystal carafe before taking his seat behind a vast mahogany desk. On it was a single thick, leather-bound document. "Ms. Jensen, Kaylee." I'm going to be direct as I believe that's the best way to handle matters of this magnitude. As I mentioned, your great-uncle Walter Pendleton has passed. His will is unequivocal. He has left his entire estate to you. Kaylee nodded. I understand. I never really knew him. My grandmother mentioned he was a bit of a hermit. I assume he left behind his house. Nathaniel Cole leaned forward, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. He did leave you his house, yes. The Pendleton estate in Pacific Heights. But that is, forgive the phrasing, a mere drop in the ocean. He slid the leather-bound document across the desk. Kaylee Walter Pendleton was not just a bit of a hermit. For the past 50 years, he was the silent sole owner and chairman of Pendleton Industries. The name meant nothing to her. She must have looked confused because he continued. Pendleton Industries is a global private holding company. It's not a name you'd see on the news because Walter valued his privacy above all else. But you would know its subsidiaries. He picked up a tablet and started swiping. It owns a majority stake in Viridian Logistics, one of the largest shipping firms on the West Coast. It wholly owns Argent Hotels, a chain of 5-star luxury resorts across Europe and Asia. It has a controlling interest in a half-dozen major tech startups in Silicon Valley, significant real estate holdings in New York and London, and what is considered one of the most valuable private art collections in the world. Kaylee stared at him, her mind unable to process the words. It felt like he was speaking a foreign language. Viridian Logistics, Argent Hotels. This couldn't be real. I think there's been a mistake, she stammered. My great-uncle, he was a history professor who retired early. My grandmother said he lived off a modest inheritance. That was the story he wanted people to believe, Nathaniel explained patiently. He inherited a small shipping company from his father in the 1960s. But Walter was a genius, a visionary with a Midas touch. He grew that small company into the conglomerate it is today, all while convincing the world and apparently his own family that he was a reclusive academic. He hated the spotlight and the greed it attracted. He paused, letting the information sink in. We've had the estate provisionally valued for probate. Kaylee, the conservative estimate of your inheritance, the total net worth of Pendleton Industries and all its assets is approximately $18.7 billion. The number hung in the air, vast and incomprehensible. $18.7 billion. Kaylee felt the room tilt. The water glass in her hand trembled, sending ripples across the surface. She thought of the $100 bill Gregory had tried to shove at her. She thought of the overdue credit card bill on her kitchen counter. She thought of the constant grinding anxiety about money that had been her companion for years. A hysterical laugh bubbled up in her throat. She quickly stifled it, pressing her fingers to her lips. Nathaniel watched her, his expression one of profound empathy. I know this is a shock. It's a seismic, life-altering event. Why me? She finally whispered. I never even met him. We exchanged a few Christmas cards when I was a child, that's all. He left a letter for you, Nathaniel said, retrieving a thick cream-colored envelope from the folder. Perhaps it will explain. Kaylee took the envelope. Her name was written on the front in a spidery, elegant script. Her hands shook as she opened it. The letter was dated 1 week before his death. My dearest Kaylee, if you are reading this, then my time as a ghost in the machine has come to an end. Forgive an old man's secrecy. I have watched you from afar more than you know. Your grandmother, my beloved sister, used to send me your school reports, your art projects, your college essays on Renaissance art. I saw in you her same spark of intelligence, her integrity, and a quiet strength you likely do not recognize in yourself. I saw you marry a man of shallow ambition. I saw you sacrifice your own passions to fuel his. I saw him discard you when he thought you were no longer of use to him. And I saw you carry on with dignity and an unwavering focus on your son. You, Kaylee, are a Pendleton. We are made of stronger stuff. This empire I have built needs a steady hand, a moral compass. It does not need another shark in a suit. It needs a guardian. It needs someone who understands the value of things beyond their price tag. someone who understands beauty history and legacy. It needs you. Do not be afraid. You are more capable than you know. Inside the main safe at the house, you will find my personal journals. They will be your guide. Trust Nathaniel Cole. He is a good man, as was his father before him. Your life is your own now. Build a magnificent one. Your great-uncle Walter. Tears streamed down Kaylee's face, blurring the ink. He had seen her. All this time when she had felt most invisible, this mysterious, reclusive billionaire had been watching over her, believing in her. She looked up at Nathaniel, her expression a mixture of grief, shock, and a dawning, terrifying resolve. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, his voice gentle but firm, "we begin. There are, of course, conditions. The will stipulates that you must assume the role of chairwoman of the board of Pendleton Industries within 30 days. The current board, well, they were not expecting you. They are, to put it mildly, a den of vipers. They will test you. They will try to usurp control." He stood up and walked to the window, gazing down at the city. "Walter built an empire, Kaylee. Now you have to learn how to rule it." Kaylee looked down at her great-uncle's letter. Then she thought of Gregory's smirking face, the $100 bill, the public humiliation. That was her old life. A life where she was powerless, pitied, and pushed aside. This new life was terrifying. It was impossible. But as she looked out at the vast expanse of the city and the bay beyond, she felt a strength she hadn't known she possessed rising within her. Walter Pendleton was right. She was made of stronger stuff, and she was about to prove it. Nathaniel Cole drove her personally. They left the cold corporate world of the financial district and wound their way up the impossibly steep hills to Pacific Heights. Here the air was different, rarefied. Mansions stood like silent sentinels, shielded by 100-year-old trees and ornate iron gates, gazing impassively at the panoramic views of the bay. They stopped before a gate that was more of a fortress wall, a 20-foot-high barrier of stone and wrought iron completely obscured by a curtain of ancient ivy. Nathaniel spoke quietly into an intercom, and the massive gate swung inward without a sound. The driveway, paved with smooth gray cobblestones, curved through a manicured English garden that seemed to go on for acres. And then she saw it. The Pendleton estate wasn't a house. It was a monument. A sprawling Gilded Age mansion of granite and limestone with turrets and balconies and countless windows that stared out like knowing eyes. "My God," Kaylee whispered. It was like something out of a fairy tale or a Gothic novel. An elderly man in a simple black suit, his back ramrod straight, was waiting for them at the massive oak doors. "Ms. Jensen," Nathaniel said, "this is Mr. Davies. He has been the estate manager for over 40 years. He was Mr. Pendleton's most trusted confidant." Mr. Davies inclined his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "Welcome, Ms. Jensen. We have been expecting you." His voice was a crisp British accent, seemingly untouched by his decades in California. He led them inside. The foyer was cavernous, with a 30-foot ceiling from which hung a chandelier that looked like a cascade of frozen diamonds. The floor was a checkerboard of black and white marble, and a grand staircase swept upwards into the shadows of the second floor. But it was the art that made Kaylee gasp. The walls were lined with masterpieces. She was an art history major. She knew what she was looking at. A Monet water lily scene, vibrant and alive, hung opposite a dark, brooding Caravaggio. A Degas sculpture of a dancer was poised on a pedestal near a stark geometric Mondrian. It was a museum, a world-class museum hidden away inside a private home. He lived here. With all this? Kaylee asked, her voice filled with awe. Mr. Pendleton believed that beauty should be a part of one's daily life, not just for visiting on a Sunday. Mr. Davies said, a flicker of warmth in his eyes. He spent most of his time in the library. This way, please. The library was even more stunning. 2 stories high, with floor-to-ceiling shelves of leather-bound books, a rolling ladder, and a fireplace large enough to stand in. In the center of the room was a massive desk, tidy and organized as if its owner had just stepped out for a moment. "The safe is behind the 17th century cartography map," Nathaniel said, pointing to a large framed map of the world. He worked a hidden latch and a section of the bookshelf swung inwards, revealing a heavy steel door. He entered a code and the vault clicked open. Inside were stacks of ledgers and a pile of thick leather-bound journals. "His personal journals," Nathaniel said, handing one to Kaylee, "as per his letter." Kaylee opened the first journal. The same elegant spidery script filled the page. The first entry was dated 50 years ago. "Took possession of father's shipping business today. It's a mess. But I see a path forward. The world is getting smaller, and the one who controls how things move from A to B will have a great deal of power." She spent the next hour in a daze, guided by Mr. Davies through a fraction of the house. There was a ballroom, a formal dining room that could seat 50, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and a glass conservatory filled with exotic orchids. Her own apartment, the one she had struggled to afford after the divorce, could fit inside the master bedroom's walk-in closet. It was too much. The scale of it was suffocating. This wasn't a life. It was an institution. How could she possibly manage all of this? How could she run a multi-billion-dollar corporation? She was just Kaylee Jensen, the woman Gregory Shaw had publicly shamed with a $100 bill just last night. Meanwhile, across town, Gregory was having a celebratory lunch with Brittany at a trendy waterfront restaurant. He was regaling her with the story of his encounter with Kaylee. "And then I pulled out a C-note and offered it to her," he bragged, sipping his overpriced Chardonnay. "You should have seen her face, babe. The look of utter defeat. It was perfect." "But," Brittany giggled, more focused on getting the perfect angle for a selfie with her lobster roll. "You're so bad, Greggy." "She needed to be put in her place," Gregory said, puffing out his chest. "Always acting so high and mighty with her art history degree like she was better than me. Well, who's winning now?" He glanced at his Rolex. "I've got that quarterly review call in an hour. We're about to close a big deal. Another fat commission check is coming my way." His phone buzzed. It was a news alert from a financial journal he subscribed to. He glanced at it, ready to swipe it away, but the headline caught his eye. "Walter Pendleton, reclusive architect of Pendleton Industries, dead at 88, successor unnamed for 18 Bonbee Empire." Gregory frowned. Pendleton Industries. He knew the name. They were the silent money behind a company his firm was trying to acquire. They were a ghost, a legend in the financial world. He tapped the article, his curiosity piqued. He scrolled through the details of the conglomerate's vast holdings, Viridian Logistics, Argent Hotels, his eyes widening with each paragraph. This was an unbelievable amount of power now up for grabs. He kept scrolling until he reached the final paragraph. "Sources close to the estate, which is being handled by the prestigious firm of Cole, Rivington and Finch, have indicated that Pendleton's long-lost great-niece has been identified as the sole heir. While her name has not been officially released, our insiders have identified her as Kaylee Jensen of San Francisco." Gregory's wine glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. "Greggy, what's wrong?" Brittany asked, annoyed that he'd ruined her shot. He didn't answer. He was staring at the name on his phone screen. Kaylee Jensen. His Kaylee. The quiet, mousy woman in the cheap dress he had just humiliated. It was impossible. A joke. A typo. It had to be. He reread the sentence. Then again. His face went pale. The blood drained from his head and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The numbers swam before his eyes. $18 billion. The smug satisfaction he had felt just moments ago curdled into a black, nauseating dread. He hadn't just divorced his wife. He had divorced one of the wealthiest women in the world. He hadn't just publicly shamed her. He had performed his petty act of cruelty just hours before she inherited a kingdom. The $100 bill. The thought of it made him want to vomit. He had made the biggest, most catastrophic mistake of his entire life. The 30 days stipulated in the will passed in a blur of legal briefings, financial tutorials, and sleepless nights for Kaylee. She moved into a guest suite at the Pendleton estate feeling like an imposter in her own home. She spent her days with Nathaniel and a team of analysts he'd hired trying to absorb 50 years of corporate history. She read Walter's journals every night, his voice a guiding hand from the past, filled with shrewd observations, ruthless business tactics, and a surprising, deeply ingrained code of ethics. The day of her first board meeting arrived like a death sentence. She was to be officially installed as chairwoman. Dressed in a custom-tailored navy blue suit, Nathaniel had insisted she purchase an armor, he'd called it. She walked into the boardroom on the top floor of the Pendleton Industries building. The room was intimidating, a long black marble table surrounded by 20 high-backed leather chairs. 18 of them were already occupied by the board members. They were all men, all over 50, all exuding an aura of predatory power. As she entered, the conversation stopped. All eyes turned to her, and the collective judgment in the room was a palpable force. They looked at her simple pearl earrings, her understated makeup, and saw exactly what Gregory had seen: a suburban mother, a dilettante, a weak link. Nathaniel made the introductions. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, allow me to present Ms. Kaylee Jensen, the chosen successor of Mr. Walter Pendleton and the new chairwoman of Pendleton Industries. A man at the opposite end of the table with silver hair and a vulpine smile did not stand. He merely steepled his fingers and watched her with cold, calculating eyes. This was Vincent Dubois, the chief operating officer, the man who had run the day-to-day operations for Walter for the last 15 years. The man Nathaniel had warned her who had fully expected to be given control of the company. Ms. Jensen, Vincent began, his voice a smooth, condescending purr. Welcome. We were all surprised by Walter's decision. While we respect his final wishes, you must understand that this is a complex global operation. It is not a book club. A few of the other men chuckled. Kaylee took her seat at the head of the table, Walter's seat. It felt cold and vast. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, but she remembered a line from Walter's journal: never let them see you bleed. The first to show weakness is the first to be eaten. She looked directly at Vincent, her gaze level. Thank you for the welcome, Mr. Dubois. And you are correct. This is not a book club. It is my company, a company my great-uncle entrusted to me, and a legacy I intend to protect. The directness of her response seemed to momentarily surprise them. Vincent's smile tightened. Of course. To that end, we have a number of pressing matters on the agenda. The first being the finalization of the Callaway acquisition. He gestured to an analyst who began to put a presentation up on the large screen. It's a hostile takeover of a rival logistics firm. We're in the final stages. All it requires is your signature as chairwoman to release the final tranche of funds. A simple formality. He slid a thick document and a pen in front of her. It was a test. He wanted her to sign it without reading to prove she was just a rubber stamp, a figurehead he could control. Kaylee didn't touch the pen. Before I sign anything that commits $1.2 billion of my company's capital, she said, her voice clear and steady, I'd like to understand the full asset portfolio of the company we are acquiring. Vincent's eyes flashed with irritation. It's all in the prospectus, Ms. Jensen. It's a standard acquisition. Their shipping lanes are synergistic with our own. I'm not talking about the shipping lanes. Kaylee interrupted. She had been up until 3 a.m. reading Walter's journals, and a specific entry from 5 years ago had snagged her attention. Dubois is pushing for the Callaway acquisition. He sees ships and trucks. He's blind to the real prize. Or worse, he isn't. She continued, Callaway Logistics in the 1980s, in an attempt to diversify, acquired a number of seemingly random assets. One of them was the Belle Epoque collection, a portfolio of early 20th century French artwork purchased as a hedge against inflation. It's listed in the asset ledger as a single line item valued at its purchase price of $5 million. I'd like to know what's in that collection. The room went silent. The board members exchanged confused glances. Vincent Dubois froze, his mask of smug superiority slipping for the first time. "That's a minor asset, Ms. Jensen. A historical footnote in their accounting," he stammered. "Is it?" Kaylee pressed, her confidence growing. "Because my art history degree, which I'm sure you all find so quaint, tells me that any collection from that period might contain some interesting pieces. For example, a little-known sculptor named Antoine Dubois was gaining prominence then. No relation, I presume, Mr. Dubois." Vincent's face went rigid. "That's an absurd insinuation." "Is it?" Kaylee said, leaning forward. "Because Walter's private notes suggest he believed the centerpiece of that collection, a sculpture thought lost after World War II called The Veiled Heart, was created by that same sculptor. A piece that, if it were to be authenticated and brought to auction today, would be worth an estimated $80 to $100 million. Far from a minor asset. It seems strange to me that a man with your surname would overlook a potential 9-figure asset created by an artist with the same rather uncommon name." She let the accusation hang in the air. She had no proof. It was a calculated bluff based on a dead man's journal entry and a hunch. But the look on Vincent's face told her everything. He had known. He was planning to acquire the company, then quietly absorb the art collection himself, likely through a proxy cheating Pendleton Industries out of a fortune. The other board members stared at Vincent, their expressions shifting from dismissal of Kaylee to suspicion of their COO. They were sharks, and they could smell blood in the water. Kaylee stood up, her small frame commanding the attention of the entire room. "The Callaway acquisition is on hold," she declared, her voice ringing with an authority she didn't know she possessed. "I am commissioning a full independent audit of all of Callaway's assets to be conducted by a firm of my choosing, specifically an immediate appraisal of the Belle Epoque collection. We will not proceed until I know exactly what it is we are buying." She looked around the table, meeting the eyes of every man there. "My great-uncle built this company on a foundation of integrity and meticulous attention to detail. It seems some of you have forgotten that. Consider this a reminder." She turned and walked out of the boardroom, her back straight, leaving a stunned silence and a seething Vincent Dubois in her wake. She didn't let them see her hands shaking until she was safely inside the elevator. She had faced the lions, and for today she hadn't been eaten. She had drawn first blood. The news of Kaylee Jensen's dramatic move at the Pendleton Industries board meeting sent shockwaves through San Francisco's elite financial circles. The story, leaked by a board member eager to curry favor with the new power, was intoxicating the unknown heiress the scorned ex-wife had faced down the formidable Vincent Dubois and exposed a potential multi-million-dollar fraud on her very first day. The narrative was irresistible. Kaylee Jensen wasn't a figurehead. She was a queen claiming her throne. For Gregory Shaw, the news was a daily escalating torture. His colleagues whispered about it at the office. His clients mentioned it in meetings. His ex-wife's face was now subtly, tastefully gracing the pages of financial journals he once read with aspirational envy. Every mention was a fresh twist of the knife, reminding him of the cosmic scale of his miscalculation. His life with Brittany was also beginning to fray. The thrill of the new and shiny was wearing off, replaced by the grating reality of her expensive tastes and shallow conversation. Their wedding, which he had flaunted to humiliate Kaylee, now felt like a financial guillotine hanging over his head. The Santorini resort, the designer dress, the endless demands, it was all predicated on a future of fat commission checks, a future that now seemed laughably small compared to the fortune he had thrown away. Desperation began to set in. He had to get back in Kaylee's orbit. He had to undo the damage. He convinced himself that she must still love him, that their years together must count for something. He just needed a way in, and he knew exactly what, or rather who, that was: their son Owen. He started by calling Kaylee's phone. It went straight to a new voicemail, one answered by a polite professional female voice. "You've reached the office of Ms. Kaylee Jensen. Please leave a message." The office of Ms. Kaylee Jensen. The words were a slap in the face. He left a fumbling, awkward message. She never called back. He tried emailing, his tone shifting from casual to pleading. Kaylee, we need to talk about Owen's summer plans. Kaylee, I have some old family photos I thought you might want. Kaylee, I miss you. All went unanswered. He was blocked professionally and personally shut out of the fortress she now inhabited. His desperation reached a fever pitch. He decided on a direct assault. Knowing Owen had a standing Saturday morning art class, a class Kaylee always dropped him off at personally, he planned his ambush. That Saturday, Kaylee pulled up to the art studio in a new, understated but clearly expensive black Audi sedan, driven by a discreet security professional Mr. Davies had insisted upon. She looked different. The stress and weariness that had clung to her for years were gone, replaced by a focused, calm energy. Her hair was professionally styled, and she wore a simple but elegant cashmere sweater. She was glowing with a newfound confidence. As she was hugging Owen goodbye, Gregory stepped out from behind a parked car. Kaylee, he said, trying to sound casual, but his voice was tight with anxiety. Kaylee's smile vanished. Her posture became rigid. Gregory, this is not the time or the place. Please, he begged, his eyes wide and earnest. Just 5 minutes, for Owen's sake. She hesitated, her gaze falling on her son, who looked nervously between his parents. She didn't want a scene. Fine, she said, her voice cold. 5 minutes. She gave Owen a final squeeze. I'll see you in 2 hours, sweetie. As Owen went inside, Gregory launched into his rehearsed speech. Kaylee, I've been a fool. An absolute blind idiot. Leaving you was the worst mistake of my life. You seem to be doing just fine with Brittany. Kaylee replied, her tone devoid of emotion. Brittany. He scoffed as if the name were an absurdity. That's nothing. A distraction. A ridiculous mistake. I'm ending it, Kaylee. I swear. It was always you. It's always been you. He reached out to touch her arm, but she recoiled as if from a snake. Don't, Gregory. His face crumpled. I saw the news. About everything. I'm so proud of you. I always knew you had it in you. You're brilliant, Kaylee. I was just too stupid to see it. The words that once would have been a healing balm to her wounded soul now sounded hollow and pathetic. She saw his flattery for what it was, a desperate attempt to claw his way into her new life, into her wealth. What do you want, Gregory? She asked, her voice sharp. I want us back. He whispered, his eyes welling with manufactured tears. I want our family back. Think of Owen. He deserves to have his parents together. We can be a family again. A real family. In that big house. We could give him the world. The mention of her house, her money, confirmed everything. It was never about her. It was about what she had. The last vestiges of any lingering sentimentality Kaylee might have harbored for the man she once loved evaporated in that moment. Let me be perfectly clear, Gregory, she said, her voice as hard and sharp as a diamond. You didn't want a family. You wanted an accessory, and when you thought you found a shinier one, you traded me in. The only thing that has changed is my price tag. You are not proud of me. You are impressed by my bank account. You don't miss us. You miss the lifestyle you think I can provide. She took a step closer, her eyes blazing with a fire he had never seen before. You will not use our son as a pawn in your greedy little games. You will stick to the custody agreement. Your lawyers can speak to my lawyers if you have any issues. But you and I, she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, are finished. There is no us. There is no going back. Don't you ever ambush me like this again. She turned and walked to her car without a backward glance. The security driver opened the door for her and she slid inside. Gregory stood on the sidewalk, utterly defeated. The woman who had just spoken to him was not the same one he had divorced. The old Kaylee would have cried. The old Kaylee might have even believed him. This new Cayley saw right through him down to the rotten core of his ambition. As the Audi pulled away, he saw his reflection in the tinted window. A desperate, pathetic man who had traded a diamond for a piece of glass and was only now realizing his mistake. He had lost, completely and irrevocably, and he had no one to blame but himself. In the weeks that followed, Cayley delved deeper into the labyrinthine world of Pendleton Industries. She worked tirelessly, often late into the night, in Walter's library, with Nathaniel Cole becoming her constant shadow and trusted advisor. The independent audit she had commissioned for the Callaway acquisition had yielded spectacular results. Not only was the Veiled Heart sculpture found crated up in a forgotten warehouse, but it was authenticated and valued at an astonishing $112 million. The revelation sent a shockwave through the company. Vincent Dubois was suspended by the board pending a full investigation. He had been caught, and Cayley's reputation as a shrewd, decisive leader was cemented, but her instincts, honed by Walter's journals, told her this was just the tip of the iceberg. Dubois wouldn't have acted alone. Walter wrote about a shadow counsel, she told Nathaniel one evening, pointing to a passage in a journal. He suspected some board members were working with outside interests, slowly siphoning funds into shell corporations, preparing for a takeover the moment he was gone. He just couldn't prove it. Together, they began a discreet, deep-dive investigation. They hired forensic accountants, cybersecurity experts, and private investigators. They started tracing the complex web of offshore accounts and anonymous holding companies that Dubois and his allies had created. It was a conspiracy far more sophisticated and dangerous than Cayley had imagined. They weren't just embezzling, they were trying to systematically devalue Pendleton Industries from within, making it vulnerable to a hostile buyout from a shadowy competitor in Dubai. Vincent Dubois wasn't the mastermind. He was just a high-level pawn. While Cayley was uncovering corporate treason, Gregory Shaw's world was imploding. His pathetic attempt to win Cayley back had failed, leaving him with nothing but shame and the ticking time bomb of his relationship with Brittany. The cancellation of their lavish Santorini wedding, a necessity after his biggest deal at work fell through and his commission evaporated, was the first major crack. "What do you mean we're postponing?" Brittany had shrieked, waving her phone at him. "I've already posted the save the date to my 300,000 followers. Do you know how embarrassing this is? It's just temporary, babe." Gregory lied, sweating. "A cash flow issue. We'll do it next year even bigger." But next year wasn't good enough. Brittany's affection was directly proportional to his spending. As Gregory's finances dwindled, so did her patience. She complained about the restaurant choices. "This place doesn't even have valet." The quality of the champagne, his preoccupation with the news about Cayley. The final straw came during a tense dinner. Gregory, morose and drinking too much, was scrolling through a business news site on his phone. A new article had just been published. "The Pendleton Revolution: How Cayley Jensen Uncovered a Decade-Long Conspiracy and Saved Her $18 Empire." The article detailed in flattering terms how Cayley's quick thinking had not only saved the company from a disastrous acquisition, but had also exposed a plot that could have destroyed it. It painted her as a brilliant, intuitive leader. There was a photo of her leaving the Pendleton building looking poised, powerful, and serene. "Are you even listening to me?" Brittany snapped, pulling him from his jealous stupor. "I was talking about the new Birkin bag I saw." "We can't afford a Birkin bag, Brittany." He finally exploded, the frustration and failure of the past month boiling over. "We can't afford Santorini. We can't afford any of it. The money's gone." Brittany stared at him, her perfectly made-up face a mask of disbelief. "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean my deal fell through. My bonus is gone and everything is a mess," he yelled. "All you do is spend, spend, spend." "I spend what you told me you could afford," she retorted, her voice rising to a screech. "You're the one who lied to me. You pretended to be this big shot, this master of the universe. You're nothing. You're just some pathetic middle manager who's obsessed with his billionaire ex-wife." The accusation hit him like a physical blow because it was true. "You know what?" she said, grabbing her purse and standing up. The diamond ring he had been so proud of seemed to mock him from her finger. I think you and I are done. I'm an influencer. My brand is about luxury and success. Being with a broke, washed-up loser is not part of that brand." She stormed out of the restaurant, leaving Gregory alone at the table, surrounded by the ruins of his life. He had lost Kaylee. He had lost the respect of his peers. Now he had lost the vapid trophy wife for whom he had sacrificed everything. He had nothing left but his own staggering world-class foolishness. He had chased an illusion of success, and in doing so had become the author of his own complete and utter ruin. The investigation culminated in a dossier thick with irrefutable evidence, wire transfers, encrypted emails, and secretly recorded conversations. Kaylee, with Nathaniel by her side, now held the fate of 4 board members and a powerful Dubai-based consortium in her hands. She could have leaked it to the press, initiated a flurry of lawsuits, and let the authorities handle it. That would have been the conventional route. But Walter's journal spoke of a different strategy. In business, as in chess, sometimes the most powerful move is not to take the king, but to force his surrender and take control of his entire army. Kaylee called an emergency unscheduled board meeting. She didn't summon them to the corporate office. Instead, the invitations were for the library at the Pendleton estate. When the remaining board members arrived, they found not only Kaylee at the head of the great desk, but also the 4 conspirators, including Vincent Dubois, who had been summoned an hour earlier, and were now sitting pale and silent, their careers and freedom hanging by a thread. In front of each seat was a slim folder. "Good morning, gentlemen." Kaylee began, her voice calm and cool, echoing slightly in the vast, book-lined room. "Please open the folders in front of you." They opened them to find a 1-page summary of the conspiracy, a list of names, and the staggering amount of money, nearly $1 billion over 10 years, that had been siphoned from the company. Gasps and curses filled the room. "For the past several weeks," Kaylee continued, "we have uncovered a deep-seated plot to systematically cripple this company from within, orchestrated by individuals in this room and their partners in Dubai." She looked directly at the 4 guilty men. "I have enough evidence to ensure you will all spend the rest of your lives in federal prison. Your assets will be seized, your reputations destroyed. Your families will be disgraced." The terror in their eyes was absolute. "However," she said, pausing for effect, "a public scandal of that magnitude would harm the company, spook the markets, and hurt our employees, the thousands of people who actually work for a living. I am offering you all a different path." She laid out her terms, a masterstroke of strategy that Walter would have admired. They would publicly resign from the board for personal reasons, effective immediately. They would sign over their shares and severance packages back to the company. They would cooperate fully in helping Pendleton Industries legally and systematically recover every single dollar from the Dubai consortium, using their inside knowledge to exploit the weaknesses in the shell corporations they had built. In exchange for their silent total cooperation, she would not press criminal charges. It was checkmate. She wasn't just ousting them. She was using their own criminality as a weapon to make her company whole again. They had no choice. One by one, defeated and broken, they agreed. Later that afternoon, after the last of the disgraced board members had departed, Kaylee stood with Nathaniel by the massive library window, watching the fog roll in over the bay. "That was," Nathaniel said, a slow smile spreading across his face, "the most brilliantly ruthless thing I have ever witnessed in my legal career. You didn't just beat them, Kaylee, you dismantled them." "I had a good teacher," she said, tapping the journal on the desk. She felt a profound sense of peace. The battle for Pendleton Industries was over. She had not only protected her inheritance, she had earned it. Her personal phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something told her to answer it. "Hello, Kaylee." The voice was broken, barely a whisper. It was Gregory. I saw the news. About Brittany. She left me. I lost my job today, Kaylee. They said my reputational risk was too high after the divorce and everything. I'm losing the condo. I have nothing. There was a time when this call would have brought her a sense of bitter satisfaction of righteous revenge. But listening to the hollowed-out man on the other end of the line, she felt only a distant pity. He wasn't a monster. He was just a weak, small man who had made a series of terrible choices. He was a ghost from a life that no longer belonged to her. "I'm sorry to hear that, Gregory," she said, and she meant it. She was sorry for the man he could have been, and for the father he was failing to be for their son. "My lawyers will be in touch to renegotiate child support given your change in circumstances. I will ensure Owen is always taken care of. Goodbye, Gregory." She ended the call before he could reply, severing the final tie to her past. She looked out the window, not at the fog, but through it to the sparkling lights of the city beyond. 2 months ago, she had stood in a hotel ballroom, a humiliated ex-wife in a department store dress. Now she was the chairwoman of a multi-billion-dollar empire, a protector of a legacy, a mother securing her son's future beyond her wildest dreams. She had faced down corporate predators, confronted her own painful past, and had emerged not just intact, but stronger, smarter, and more herself than ever before. The house, the money, the power, they were just tools. The real inheritance Walter had left her was the discovery of her own strength. Her new life was just beginning, and for the first time she was the one holding the pen, ready to write the next chapter herself. And so Kaylee Jensen's incredible journey took her from the depths of public humiliation to the pinnacle of corporate power. She proved that the end of one story is often the explosive beginning of a much better one. Her triumph wasn't just in gaining an empire, it was in rediscovering the formidable woman who had been there all along, buried under years of self-doubt and sacrifice. Kaylee's story is a powerful reminder that our greatest strength is often forged in the fires of our deepest heartbreaks, and that sometimes the most unexpected key can unlock a destiny we never dared to dream of. If you were moved by Kaylee's incredible transformation from a heartbroken ex-wife to a billionaire powerhouse, show your support by hitting that like button. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder of their own hidden strength. And for more unforgettable tales of dramatic twists and ultimate triumph, make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss the stories we have coming next.